2nd at 8:30 a.m. Wayman, would you please read the notice regarding electronic participation?
Sure. Pursuant to statute 15.263A, the Finance and Fiscal Resources Committee of the Kent County Board of Commissioners will conduct this meeting today via electronic communications to protect the public health. Any member wishing to listen to the proceeding or provide public comment may do so by following the internet connection, phone numbers, and passcodes that are established on the agenda that's posted. Closed captioning is available via internet connection. Those wishing to provide input may do so in advance of the meeting regarding any business to come before the committee by submitting input or questions to public comment at kentcountymi.gov. Anyone disrupting the meeting or using offensive language or actions will be removed from the meeting.
Thank you, Wayman. I understand from legal counsel that we need to take a roll call and state where you are located by township, city. So Pam, would you please call the roll for the Finance Committee?
Sure. Commissioner Antor.
Here, Sparta Township.
Commissioner Breivy.
I'm here, Gainestown Township, Kent County, Michigan.
Commissioner Bolkowski.
Present on Anishinaabe land known as Grand Rapids, Michigan, Kent County.
Commissioner Green.
Here, Plainfield Township, Kent County, Michigan.
Commissioner Morgan.
Here in an undisclosed location in Cortland Township.
Commissioner Sparks. Commissioner Sparks. Commissioner Womack.
Here, Grand Rapids, Michigan, Kent County.
Commissioner Wooden.
Here, City of Grand Rapids.
And Chair Jones.
Here, Cannon Township, Kent County, Michigan.
And
So we have quorum.
Yes, we do.
And we will go ahead and start with public comment. I'm going to open public comment. Is there any public that would like to address the Finance and Fiscal Resources Committee this morning?
Commissioner Mandy Bolter has her hand raised.
Commissioner Bolter, did you want to address the Finance and Fiscal Resources Committee?
Yeah, thanks, Chair Jones. Can you hear me okay?
We can.
All right. Well, good day. It's Tuesday, Groundhog's Day. It has felt like that for quite some time this year. I want to thank Chair Jones for recognizing me. I just want to quickly address the West Michigan Vaccination Center. We toured it yesterday. It was a beautiful facility. It is amazing. We could lead the nation in vaccinating our fellow citizens. The next closest is in California, and they think they could do about 15,000 a day. We could have roughly 40,000, 30 to 40,000 a day, and we could get through this pandemic and get everybody back to economic prosperity very quickly as soon as those vaccines are available. So it is up and running. It is a beautiful facility. There's been some comments in the news about an agreement that was made between the county and the CAA. I think all the staff is working so hard and so fast. That agreement didn't go through our board. It didn't go through the CAA board, to my understanding. And I think that in the haste to hurry and serve the public as quickly as possible, maybe we didn't have time to kind of analyze every single need and look at all the specific services provided just so we could get it up and running. I know that building is empty. It is currently being funded by taxpayers through the bonds, and it is just such a great public service that could be provided to our community. And I really am imploring the CAA board now that things have kind of, the dust has settled and we can analyze things to come back to the table with us. Let's look at this again and make sure that we are doing all we can to provide this public service to our community. as quickly as possible and as reasonable as possible. I don't know that the current amount is sustainable for the county to continue to provide. And I just hope that we can all come together, and I'm imploring those board members to revisit that with us and come together with us. So that's my comments today. Thank you, Chair
Thank
Jones.
you. Is there anyone else for public comment? All right, not seeing any others, I will close public comment, and that will bring us to the consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Moved by Breeby.
Support by Wooden.
Moved and supported. And are there questions or comments on the consent agenda? Hey, seeing none, Pam? Pardon? No, okay. Seeing none, Pam, would you please call the roll to pass the consent agenda?
Sure. Commissioner Antor,
Yes.
Commissioner Breeby,
Yes.
Commissioner Volkowski,
Yes.
Commissioner Green,
Yes.
Commissioner Morgan,
Yes.
Commissioner Sparks,
Yes.
Commissioner Womack,
Yes.
Commissioner Wooden,
Yes.
Chair Jones.
Yes.
That motion passes.
Thank you very much. That will bring us to item number 3 from the Drain Commission. Wayman, would you please review the action request?
Sure. This is a request to recommend to the Board of Commissioners to authorize the issuance of Cedar Springs Drainage District Bond Series 2021. The Cedar Springs Drainage District is a Kent County drain district under the jurisdiction of the Drain Commissioner. Is authorized under the Act 40, Public Acts of Michigan, 1956, as amended for the making of certain intra-county drain improvements, and will issue its bonds in order to finance the improvements. The proposed resolution will authorize the pledge of the county's limited tax full faith and credit as backup as security on the bonds. The treasurer to execute a certificate of the county to comply with the continued disclosure. The administrator and board chair of the County Board of Commissioners to prepare and approve proportions of the official statement that pertain to the county, and the execution of all documents as necessary in order to close on the issuance of the proposed bond issuance. The bond proceeds will be used to pay for necessary improvements by the Cedar Springs Drainage District and a special assessment district established by the Drain District, the amount not to exceed $1.9 million. The principal of and interest on the bonds will be payable from assessments to be made on public corporations and or benefited properties in the special assessment district. The pledge of the full faith and credit will allow the property owners and public corporations to pay their assessments over time and provide a better interest rate in doing so, thus providing a substantial benefit to the residents of the county. The method of the sale will be determined based upon the best current market offerings at the time of sale. Bond counsel has reviewed all documents. I know that Drain Commissioner Yonker is on the line today. He's also here to answer questions that you have.
Okay, first, let's start with, is there a motion to approve?
Moved by Morgan.
Support by Womack.
Okay, we have moved and supported, and let's do questions, comments, and discussion.
Madam Chair, I have a question.
Yes,
if I
Commissioner
may.
Morgan.
It's for the Drain Commissioner, real quick. Is that the drain that kind of runs through the city that we've been having problems with, or is this another drain?
Ken, are you there? Are you on mute?
Sorry. Yes, that's the one. It's the one where there's been commercial properties built over the top of the drain.
Okay, can I follow up, Madam Chair?
Please go ahead.
Okay, thanks. So when do you think they're going to go out to the market? I imagine the bond market's pretty favorable right now.
That will be as soon as we get this passed, they're ready to go.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, is there anyone else? Okay,
You're on mute. You're on mute, Diane. You're on mute.
Thank you. I have a follow-up. So can we just talk for a moment? Is this the county backing this, Ken? Or is it just the drainage district going out to look for bonds?
You're on mute, Ken.
The drainage district is going for the bonds, but it's secured by the county.
And does that mean when we're going for our AAA bond rating, this is something that we'd have to disclose?
Jeff would be best to answer that.
Jeff, would you please answer that one?
Yep, good morning. So it would certainly be disclosed, Yep, it would be just listed as one of the county's outstanding debt issues. Actually, I mean, the Drain Commission's outstanding debt, but it would be listed as a county backed with its full faith and credit debt. If you have any additional legal questions on the setup, Roger Sweats, the bond attorney on this, is also on the call.
Hey, Ken, can we circle back then for other entities that would like to do the same thing? What is the process for this to be decided, and how did that come about for this one versus other communities, and how does that work?
I'm not quite sure what you're asking, Diane.
Well, there's a lot of drains in the county
Yeah.
and city, villages, townships. They all have, many of them have issues, won't say all, but many of them have issues that require work. And if there's a favorable bond rating to be gained by being backed by the county, my question is, where is the process for others to also apply for something along these lines?
We usually don't go with the bond market unless we're at $1 million or up. If we're under $1 million, it's always, I usually work, well now Jeff, but before Steve, would work within the county, would float that finance at an interest rate. That's what we've done in the past. So once we hit the $1 million mark, then it's getting to be quite a bit of money. So we go into the bond market to finance these projects.
Madam Chair, this is Roger Sweats. I can help with that if you would like.
Please.
Yeah, thank you, Madam. Roger Sweats from Dickinson Wright, the bond counsel on the project. County drains are initiated in generally one of two ways, either by the municipality itself, filing a petition with the Drain Commissioner to request the project, which is what happened here. So it was requested by the city by petition, approved by resolution of the city council. So any city, village, or township can do that. The other option is 5 property owners in a drainage district that believe that their district needs improvements could file a petition with the drainage district, and then the Drain Commissioner would start the process. It does need to then be reviewed by a board of review, which are 3 independent persons appointed pursuant to the Drain Code that review the project and determine if it's necessary. And then once it gets past that point, then under the Drain Code, the Drain Commissioner is mandated to carry the process through as he's done with this project. And so then once it gets to the point where the project's been bid and everything's done, the question then needs to be made is the cost enough that it needs to be financed? And the county does finance some of them internally. But for larger projects, as Ken mentioned, like this one, it's a large amount for the county to finance internally, and it would be a real hardship to the citizens to make them pay the full amount of their assessments up front in 1 year, which is the only other way to do this. So by adopting the resolution, this does allow, and there's a large assessment against the city, there are significant assessments against property owners, and so it allows them to pay it over time. And it might be able to finance without full faith and credit, but it's doubtful, so they could have to pay it all up front if the county does not back it. If we could get bonds issued even without the full faith and credit, it would add at least an interest point to the cost for the city and the property owners. So this is a way that the county really supports its residents by enabling these financings.
And it says you would expect, how long, it doesn't really, how long are the bonds good for? What's the time period?
This issue is planned to be a 20-year bond issue, which is a decision that Ken made, based on what he viewed the burden to the property owners to be given their annual payments.
Madam Chair, this is Morgan for one more.
Yes.
Just a comment. This isn't out of the ordinary, and like Roger said, it's a special assessment that goes back to the property owners for payment. So something that's been done in the past, and it's not unusual.
Okay, Commissioner Womack?
Yes, I had a question for Mr. Sweats. When he was explaining some of our options for backing up this bonding, also it is written that the county would also be able to levy taxes on all taxable properties in Kent County. Could you speak a little bit about that? Because I feel that was left out. I'm sure it won't come down to that option, I would hope, but since it is written in there, I thought we should discuss that because it affects all Kent County taxable property.
Yes, thank you, Commissioner. Yes, I'd be happy to address that. In effect, that's kind of a legal way to say that the county is backing this bond with its general fund. So it's obligated to, the county would be obligated to levy its available general fund millages to pay this bond issue if there was a shortfall. So it's only saying that to the extent the county has available millage and general fund, that stands behind the bond issue. It does not give the county the power to levy any new millages beyond what general millage is authorized. And I would also say, for the benefit of the committee and for the full board when it comes to it, this almost never ever happens. I'm not personally aware of a county ever having to make a payment on its full faith and credit pledge pursuant to one of these resolutions. And if it were to happen, it would most likely be a small and short-term kind of stopgap coverage, because it would just mean that an assessment was late in getting paid. Really, it would mean the delinquent tax revolving fund did not cover that assessment, and the property eventually went to tax foreclosure sale, and whatever shortfall there was in that sale would really be the ultimate shortfall here. And then if that happens, the drainage district has the power and the obligation to reassess that deficiency in a deficiency assessment, which it would collect in the next year or two and pay the county back. So while the dollar amount in the resolution seems high, any likely shortfall that would be covered would almost certainly be relatively low.
Thank you very much. I definitely appreciate that. And I'm sure that as we have more of our constituents asking more about the things that are happening at the county, and it's a good thing the public get more involved in watching their tax money. I'm very sure Mr. Sweats, my constituents would like to thank you and say they appreciate that also. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, Commissioner Antor.
Thank you, Chair. Hey, good morning, Ken. I just had a question. I'm not familiar with that drain. It's outside my area, but could you just go to what's the nature of the problem there? Is it something going on upstream? Is it just the entire stretch that's just needs to be upgraded, or what's going on?
Well, like I said, it's a drain that runs through the city. The second half of that drain runs through the city of Cedar Springs, and they built commercial buildings. There's 4 blocks of commercial buildings built on top of the drain. And what triggered this thing is one of the businesses wanted to do an expansion, and I would have had to sign off on it because it's in our easement, which I wasn't going to do. Number one, it's in our easement. It's illegal use of our easement. Number 2, it's a huge public safety issue. The second thing that drove it is the city also wanted to build a new fire station, which was going to be built on top of the drain, which again, I wasn't going to sign off on, so they couldn't build a fire station. So the only option we had was to reroute it. But the public safety factor, during this time, we looked at different options because it is a very expensive project. Had a lot of conversation with Lyndon Wayman on this, and we believe that as Kent County, we believe that public safety comes first, and we don't put a dollar value on putting the public in danger, where later we would say, why did we not do it? You know, what's $1 million when we lost a whole restaurant full of people because the drain blew up? And
Yeah,
those
for
are
sure.
real potential risks that we're facing till we get this thing rerouted. So
I was just curious, Ken, if the city of Cedar Springs, that special assessment is going to go back just to the city, or will it go to anybody outside the city in the township area as well?
there's a couple small parcels that are outside the city proper,
It'd be,
but
in
not
these,
many.
yeah, in these cases, it just seems like they weren't responsible as far as the people outside the city. This is more of something that happened in the city with their building, maybe lack of building codes or whatever. It's just, it's always tough to punish somebody outside the area that didn't really do anything with higher.
Well, I guess that's kind of a negative way to look at it because no one's being punished. You got to realize this drain was put in place back in the late 1800s, early 1900s. We had horses and buggies. No one ever thought about vehicles running up and down the street, and to put a building over that drain at that time, especially for the local bar, they cut a hole in their floor and on top of the pipe, and they put their beer in there to keep it cold. It really
Yeah.
made sense, you know. They didn't have where we are today. So
Right.
based at the time, those people made probably their very good decisions, but things changed.
Right.
And
I just think,
now we got to look out for other things today, and that's what drove it. There's no
Right,
one
no.
that did wrong. No one's being punished. We're just fixing an issue that has potential public safety hazard.
yeah, I guess my only point is I guess I would rather see the city pick up the entire tab.
Well, you
because
can't do that. I can't do that legally because the drain code has everybody that sheds water into that district has to pay for the maintenance. That's the way the law is written.
Okay, thanks, Ken.
Yeah.
Ken, how large is that district?
The city of Cedar Springs, and then there's just a few areas on the outside, but we're not talking many acres, maybe 20, 30 acres outside the city, not much.
How many
So
households?
I don't have that number off the top of my head.
Can we get that before it goes to the board meeting, please? I'd like to know how many are going to be assessed in that district.
I can get that number for you real quick if you want me to get it.
I don't need it before this vote. I want it before the board meeting on
right.
the 11th. Okay.
That's not a problem. Yep, I can get it texted to you.
Thanks.
No problem.
Is there anyone else with some questions? Okay, not
Diane,
seeing- Yes, Ken?
Diane, I will give you a forewarning. I have one other one that's going to be coming up probably about June. We have a project that's the engineer estimate's coming in at $1.5 million. That's going to
Hold
need
on this.
bonding as well. And that's in Gaines Township.
Always good to know. Thanks
Yeah.
for the heads up.
That's a
Do we
heads
have-
up.
Do we have any other questions on this one? All right, not seeing any additional questions. Pam, would you please call the roll to pass item number 3?
Sure. Commissioner Antor,
Yes.
Commissioner Brebe,
Yes.
Commissioner Volkowski,
Yes.
Commissioner Green,
Yes.
Commissioner Morgan,
Yes.
Commissioner Sparks,
Yes.
Commissioner Womack,
Yes.
Commissioner Wooden,
Yes.
Chair Jones.
Yes.
That motion passes.
Thank you. That brings us to item number 4 from the Health Department. Wayman, would you please review the action request?
Yes, this is a recommendation to the Board of Commissioners to appropriate $125,000 to the 2021 budget, health fund budget for First Steps Kent, add 1 full-time public health nurse position for the infant fetal infant mortality review program. The Health Department received funding from the Ready by 5 millage services to hire a full-time fetal infant mortality review coordinator and reestablish the FEMA program in the county. The county's FEMA program will closely follow the model established by the state of Michigan. Michigan Department of Health and Human Services describes the FEMA program as an evidence-based process of identification and analysis of factors that contribute to fetal and infant death. The FEMA coordinator will utilize the networks of connections formed by Ready by 5 to provide greater awareness of data surrounding child deaths in the county and to contribute to better prevention and intervention activities for children who are aged 0 to 5. Annual costs and salary and benefits for the new position is $90,800. The grant will also cover the cost of an existing public health program supervisor, which is $13,200, as well as travel, supplies, software, and indirect costs of $20,800. The agreement periods January 1, 2021 to December 31, 2022. A total of $125,000 in funding has been made available for 12 months, beginning January 1, 2021, and ending December 31, 2021. And an additional amount of $138,962 will be recommended for allocation by the Board of Commissioners in 2022. If funding is eliminated or decreased, the position will be eliminated unless continuation funding is approved pursuant to the fiscal policy on grants, contracts, and donations. Corporate Counsel will review and approve all documents as to form prior to signature. This item was reviewed and approved by the Legislative Human Resources Committee at its January 26th meeting.
Thank you, Wayman. Is there a motion to approve?
Moved by Bukowski.
Support by Sparks.
Okay, we have moved and supported, and we will take questions, comments, and discussion. Commissioner Bukowski.
Thank you, Chair. Just want to, I guess, thank the voters first for providing these dollars into the Ready by 5 millage. And as we continue to target 0 to 5 and our infant mortality in our county, in spite of the pandemic, these standard items continue and the hard work of staff continues to move the numbers in the right direction. So it's good that we continue to stay focused and good that the county health department got this grant.
Okay, anyone else? We don't see any others. Pam, would you please call the roll to pass item number 4 on the agenda?
Sure. Commissioner Antwerp,
Yes.
Commissioner Breve,
Yes.
Commissioner Bukowski,
Yes.
Commissioner Green,
Yes.
Commissioner Morgan,
Yes.
Commissioner Sparks,
Yes.
Commissioner Womack,
Yes.
Commissioner Wooden,
Yes.
Chair Jones.
Yes.
That motion passes.
Thank you. That brings us to item number 5, also from the Health Department. Wayman, would you please review the action request?
Sure. This is a recommendation to the Board of Commissioners to approve amendment number 2 to the Health Department's comprehensive planning, budget, and contracting agreement through the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services for the mobile unit project, accept and appropriate $885,300 to the 2020-21 Health Fund budget, and to authorize board chair designate to execute the grant agreement and approve extensions, amendments, and increases to the grant appropriation not to exceed 15% of the original award. The Health Department has received $885,000 in funding from the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services for a mobile health unit project related to flu and COVID-19. The mobile unit will be used to expand COVID-19 testing efforts, augment current flu vaccinations efforts, and implement a COVID-19 vaccination strategy. In all 3 activities of testing, flu vaccination, and COVID-19 vaccination, the focus is to expand services to supervisory staff, temporary staffing, supplies, vaccine coverage, storage equipment, and I'm sorry, let me back up. This is for communities living facilities that include long-term care facilities and adult foster care in communities that may not otherwise have access to these services, such as inner city and rural communities. The support and cost for the funding existing for the department includes nursing, medical assistant and supervisory staff, temporary staffing, supplies, vaccine storage, equipment, computer equipment, and communication and outreach services, software, and overhead costs. Funding also supports the purchase of the mobile unit and all the related operational costs. The state has completed a request for proposal process and identified the vendor and negotiated the price of the vehicle. So this will be coming via the state. Funding will also cover the cost of laboratory testing for those individuals who do not have insurance. And the period of this grant is December 1, 2020 through September 30th, 2021. The action item is activity related to COVID-19.
Thank you. Is there a motion to approve?
Moved by Breedy.
Support Polkowski.
Moved and supported, and we'll take questions, comments, and discussion. Commissioner Bukowski.
Oh, thank you, Chair. Question for, I don't know if Adam or Teresa are on the call. Something that we have been advocating for at Disability Advocates is is home vaccination. It's, at least this memo states that we will be able to get to congregate living situations, as well as, and I would call them neighborhoods, or be they rural or urban. However, is it on the radar yet to potentially, go to people's homes that, receive home-based care? A lot of folks in the county, seniors and adults with disabilities, that even, couldn't necessarily go to such a local setting.
Hey, good morning, commissioners, and thank you for the question, Commissioner Bukowski. It is absolutely on our radar. We really have a multi-pronged approach strategy, trying to make vaccine available and testing available to the majority of people who can travel easily enough. And then having a more strategic strategy for those who have travel limitations for any number of reasons. And that includes those who are homebound. And we are having a conversation and working with the state, hopefully with the Visiting Nurses Association, to build a program where we can bring vaccine to individuals who are homebound like that. That won't really be the purpose of this mobile unit, of course, though, which will be more focused on that prong of getting it to communities, whether they're adult foster care homes or long-term care homes, or perhaps a mobile home park in a rural area that has socioeconomic barriers, or neighborhoods that have transportation or other limitations. So to answer your question, yes, that is on our radar. We are working with others to try to find a solution specific to that problem.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else? Not seeing any others. Pam, would you please call the roll to pass agenda item number 5?
Sure. Commissioner Antor,
Yes.
Commissioner Breedy,
Yes.
Commissioner Bukowski,
Yes.
Commissioner Green,
Yes.
Commissioner Morgan,
Yes.
Commissioner Sparks,
Yes.
Commissioner Womack,
Yes.
Commissioner Wooden,
Yes.
Chair Jones.
Yes.
That motion passes.
Thank you. That brings us to item number 6, also from the Health Department. Wayman, would you please review the action request?
Well, this is a request, our recommendation to the board to approve the Kent County Health Department's National Association of County and City Health Officials Grant Agreement, better known as NACHO, accept and appropriate $49,800 to the 2020-21 Health Fund budget, and to authorize the board chair or designate to execute the grant agreement, approve extensions and amendments, and increases to the grant appropriation not to exceed 15% of the original award, The Health Department has been awarded $83,000 in funding from NACCHO to improve the Health Department's capability to effectively address the needs of people with disabilities and planning and responding to outbreaks, pandemics, and other national emergencies for the period from November 5th, 2020 through June 30th, 2022. Of the total award, $49,800 is available for November 5, 2020 through July 31, 2021. The remaining $33,200 for August 1, 2021 through June 30th, 2022 is contingent on the Center for Disease Controls and Prevention's approval of a no-cost extension for the NACCHO grant. Funding will be used to support a disability champion, to coordinate activities and ensure that issues of impacting people with disabilities are included in planning and response efforts. The Health Department will collaborate on the implementation of sustainability plans with the disability champion and public health emergency preparedness program staff, and establish and maintain partnerships that ensure the disability inclusive planning and response efforts. The funding will be used to support the cost of existing health department staff, to oversee the program, contractual services with the disability champion and overhead costs. Assistant Corporate Counsel has reviewed and approved the contract as to form. This action is an activity related to COVID-19.
Thank you, Wayman. Is there a motion to approve?
Moved by Greavy.
Thank you.
Support by Morgan.
Thank you. And we'll take questions, comments, and discussion. Commissioner Bukowski.
Thank you, Chair. To continue my streak of conflicts of interest, which I haven't disclosed one in it's probably been days, this contract, it probably comes as little surprise that the disability champion that's alluded to this is Disability Advocates of Kent County. As a statement of fact, we were part of the proposal for this national competitive competition for this grant, and 10 cities, counties across the country were chosen. And so since we were part of the successful grant award, or at least to this point, and would be that disability champion locally, I will be abstaining.
Thank you for sharing that. Anyone else? All right, Pam, would you please call the roll to pass agenda item number 6? And when we get to Commissioner Bukowski, he may abstain.
Sure. Commissioner Antor,
Yes.
Commissioner Greavy,
Yes.
Commissioner Bukowski,
Abstain.
Commissioner Green,
Yes.
Commissioner Morgan,
Yes.
Commissioner Sparks,
Yes.
Commissioner Womack,
Yes.
Commissioner Wooden,
Yes.
Chair Jones.
Yes.
That motion passes.
Thank you. That brings us to item number 7 today, Commissioner Miscellaneous. Do we have any Commissioner Miscellaneous this morning? Commissioner Green.
Thank you, Chair Jones. I appreciate it. Like Chair Bolter alluded to in public comment, I had the opportunity with some of my colleagues to tour the vaccine clinic yesterday. It is a very impressive facility, to say the least. And the opportunity for us to be right up there with some of the top vaccination centers, excuse me, in the country is really can be a great showcase for West Michigan, for our region, and for the county down the road. But much like many of my colleagues, I was a little bit blindsided by the story that came out in the Detroit Free Press last week, and kind of brought some of the details of the cost of the clinic to light, and was a little bit surprised to learn of those details, and what I view as a pretty high cost for this facility. So I guess this is primarily a question for Wayman and the staff, but I wanted to know a little bit about how this process panned out and how we arrived at that figure that's roughly, give or take $12,000 a day for the clinic, and sort of what the breakdown of that cost looks like, because I think a lot of us have a lot of questions based on how we kind of arrived here. And I think we just like to better understand how we got to that figure. Not to say that this isn't a very useful endeavor, because I think we all think it is. But I think we'd like to make sure that from a financial perspective, it's a little more tenable for the county.
Sure, I can weigh in on this, and then if Adam London or anyone from the health department or any one of the team members have any additional to say. We were approached after looking at other facilities by the two major hospitals in the community to identify a location that'd be a large-scale event to get a significant number of people through vaccination. The intent all along has been to figure out how to safely get people through the system, to identify ways in which we would protect the identity of individuals that are being vaccinated, and to make sure that we had a facility that would not compromise the public. And we did in good faith, working with the SMG ASM group who runs the DeVos place, work with them early on to identify what would it take to put on the table the minimal cost to cover the expense for that facility. And I can tell you that the team worked with that group to identify what that would look like. In comparison to another facility in Detroit, the former Coble Hall, where they were leasing a parking garage, that facility was discounted at 30% of the standard rate. The DeVos place, 1 million square feet, including the parking garage, was 35% of the typical rate. So we were receiving a 65% discount. At the time, we didn't have all of the particular details, what the annual cost of utilities and all of the different items would be, but we felt that they were the partners that we had worked with in the past for rentals, service agreements, even when we've come to them for standing up board meetings and so forth for the county over at DeVos, trusted that they would provide us with reasonable rates. That's how we got there. There was nothing that we were intending to go around the board of commissioners. We were using the public health code through Adam London's role to get the agreement in place because timing was of the essence. Adam, if you're there, if you have any additional detail or any member of the group, please chime in.
Yeah, thanks, Raymond. I probably can't speak directly to the negotiation process. I think that was largely Jeff in finance, along with Wayman and team. But Wayman's points about why the site was selected are spot on, and I hope everyone saw that yesterday during the tour, that this is quite an exceptional location that provides us a tremendous ability both to maximize throughput, but also to maximize safety for the staff and the visitors because of the space that facility allows. It was our thought that the early cost, we knew were going to be extraordinary, setting this up and operationalizing it, especially while we're still waiting for vaccine supply to maximize. Our thought had been and has been that the CARES Act money would help us stand up the clinic and offset these upfront startup costs, and that subsequent months, if we agreed to execute subsequent months, would be funded largely by revenue sharing with the insurance billables for the vaccine administration, and expense sharing with our partners in that space, and also with financial support from state and federal levels. Support that we haven't yet received, but has been suggested is coming to us to support exactly this sort of effort. So we did not intend for this to be an ongoing cost at that rate for any extended period of time.
Thank you. I appreciate that from both of you. And I see a couple of my other colleagues have their hands raised, so I'll wrap up here. But I did want to say, moving forward, I'd really like to see if it's possible for us to sort of audit those expenses in detail, and then, work with the CAA and SMG and other parties to, come to an agreement that's a little more tenable for the long term. I think we recognize this could be in place, and it's set up to be in place for quite a while. So I think getting that cost down would be a great win.
And Commissioner, just to comment, we are in wait of those details. They've been working all weekend to provide that level of detail that you're talking about, and I expect to see that sometime today, hopefully today.
Thank you.
So Wayman, as a follow-up on that, before we continue down the list, is the $12,000 a day set in stone, or is that something that was a maximum? Can you help explain that a little bit more?
So the 12,000 a day was a platform, and we didn't know what the additional cost would be. No one has any idea of knowing how much energy would be used each day and how many other items would be required. No experience with it. So the idea would be to review those costs at, in 2-week intervals or what have you, and then come to a conclusion about what other costs need to be on the table. We anticipated there would be additional other costs incurred, but that $12,000 was to be the base amount that would be paid.
A day.
Yes.
So when did the contract start, Wayman?
I believe it was last week, Monday, if I'm not mistaken. Adam, can you help on that?
That sounds approximately correct. We can fact check that though.
So, I mean, I'm looking at my calendar here. We're talking the 25th of January.
Yes. And I believe.
And it runs through February 28th, this current contract?
Correct.
All right, Commissioner Brady.
Thank you, Chair Jones. So I also had the opportunity yesterday to tour the vaccine clinic and was extremely impressed with the collaboration that it entailed. And one of the things that I didn't realize, well, I remember back early on in the pandemic, Spectrum had a field hospital set up, and they were actually going to use that DeVos Place for their field hospital. So they added fiber, and they also had a whole setup designed for patient care if that was necessary. So, that was already kind of in the works, already set up there. And I think, at this facility, there's unique things that make it the right facility to use as far as, air filtration that goes on, sunlight that comes in the building. The goal is to get as many people vaccinated as possible. And I think this building definitely allows for that, but there's also things like space requirements. We can't just jam a whole bunch of people into one facility. We need to think about space and where they're going. And, so I think there's a lot of thought that went into using this facility, and it's just quite impressive. And, in Michigan, it's wintertime. We don't want people waiting outside to get their shot. There's elderly people that, they're trying to service first. And so we need to be mindful of that as well. We also need to observe these people after they have their vaccine. So one of the amazing things is the proximity to the hospitals. There's an ambulance there on site. You can just drive up the hill to Michigan if there's someone who has an adverse reaction, which is important to have that proximity. So I do think the building is the perfect spot, but I obviously have concerns, like many of my colleagues, at the price tag. Like many organizations, they've made cuts, like Experience Grand Rapids and West Michigan Sports Commission. They've taken salary cuts. They've had to downsize employees. I'm curious, with SMG and CAA, how have they handled, cuts to their staff and budgets? We all kind of have to tighten our belts during this time. And, it is frustrating that we're paying, the public is paying bonds on this. And also these are tax dollars, whether they've come from CARES funding or not, it is tax dollars. So it's important for us to be mindful of that. And I would really encourage, the chair of the CAA and the head of SMG here to take a look at, what can they provide the community. This is a service to get everybody healthy and back on their feet so we can start attending concerts and meetings and conferences. And, perhaps they should be providing this at a lesser cost. And I think that would be in the best interest of the community. I know that there's someone also offering a building for free. And, I don't think that building necessarily meets all the requirements that this type of facility has. So that's something to consider as well. But, I would encourage our staff to continue negotiating with SMG and CAA and keep us informed. This should be a transparent process. And I look forward to, getting vaccinated myself, and hopefully I can, have it sooner than later. But this could be the biggest vaccination clinic in the country. And I think, with West Michigan and the collaboration we have, we can do it, but we just need to focus on the right cost and, get people vaccinated. So thanks for all the time that the staff has been spending on this throughout the county. And, it's really great to see these efforts come together.
Okay, Commissioner Wooden.
Thank you, Chair. I guess I'm going to join the choir, so I will try to avoid things that have already been said and just echo. I, like others, attended yesterday's tour and certainly saw the same value of having DeVos Place as the vaccination clinic due to its proximity and ventilation, proximity to the major hospitals, central location. It is certainly an optimal location. All that being said, drawing back to what my colleague just said about the right price, I am finding it really hard to believe that a $12,000 a day fee is actually the reasonable price for us to save lives and bring life back to normal. I read the section of the original Detroit Free Press article where SMG's director, Mr. McKeegan, is interviewed. And in it, he stated that when determining what fee to assess, he said, and I quote, "We, as in the CIA, don't want to be in a position where hosting would cost us additional funds." He continues to say that with that $12,000 a day fee, it doesn't cause that operating deficit to grow. So if the goal is to not cause their operating deficit to grow, I do find it hard to believe that us being there, these three providers, is going to add $12,000 every day to their costs. I checked their most recent audit, which even states that operating expenses did decrease in their first half of 2020, but decreased at a rate lower than their revenues because, again, I quote, "certain operating needs of the facilities remain even when not in use." I also looked over the licensing agreement that was referenced in the Fox 17 story about this, and just wondering what additional costs there might be beyond what they're providing. And the only items that CAA or SMG is furnishing in addition to the space without additional costs are the normal heat or air conditioning during the event, overhead lighting, use of restroom facilities, and janitorial services, as well as one standard setup. And so it would seem that, as mentioned in the past, utilities would be the largest expense to increase by us occupying the space. And I understand that, sub-zero refrigerators certainly take a lot of energy, but I do wonder if it's truly going to be $12,000 a day worth of added consumption, especially when, again, I checked into their audit, and in their past year, all before the pandemic, the utility costs for both the arena and the convention center were just under $7,500 a day. So it just does not add up here for me. And so that's why I think it's incumbent for SMG and the CAA to provide us with the appropriate documentation to prove that having us use this space in this way adds $12,000 a day to their operations. Otherwise, I do the right thing and agree to a new licensing agreement that is only based on not increasing their operating deficit, so that we can use this space and use these limited taxpayer dollars for ramping up vaccinations and keep people safe from COVID-19. In the end, the CAA is a public body. The DeVos Place is a public facility. paid for with public money, and it must serve the needs of the public right now. Thank you.
Commissioner Antor.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I guess I'd like to echo the previous commissioners on this. The bottom line is we could get off in the weeds about comparing buildings, but one of the things that was said this morning that was striking is we have the largest building in the nation, right? We can do more than anybody else. To me, that speaks volumes. Are we the only ones that get it? The rest of the country, every county in the country doesn't get it, and we do. I think we're paying for a Titanic. I've said this earlier, when we don't need, we could probably get by with a rowboat. We're putting 8,000 people through a week. I realize there's speculation that this could exceed 20,000. I doubt it. Half the country right now, if you look at statistics, and probably a little bit more than half are not going to get vaccinated. Okay. So I would think that would translate to the state of Michigan too. So you could cut that number in half of eligible people probably will not get vaccinated. I love the DeVos place. I've toured it, been in there many times. I've considered renting it a long time ago. Great building. Is it better than the Deltaflex? Certainly it's probably a nicer looking building, and it's got more access. Or not access, actually got less access, but it's bigger, shinier. But people, we got to remember that Detroit's using a parking ramp. I talked to a friend of mine who's a commissioner in Lapeer County. They're using the fairgrounds. Okay. Novi Expo Center is being used, and these are all free. I mean, these are privately owned, and they're giving it away. Okay, so we always talk about our public-private partnerships, and we're all really proud of that, and we should be. The problem is now we got a public-public partnership, and it feels like we're getting gouged. It really does. That building should be free. It should be free. If there's any utilities that need to be paid over the course of this, we should take it out of our general fund. But, or whatever, I know we're using CARES Act money. To me, that's like monopoly money these days. Everybody's, my God, what's going on with the distribution of CARES Act money. People are getting it that really shouldn't be getting it. People are getting it that are still operating their businesses at 100%. And they still qualify for CARES Act. Our national debt's going to be over 30 trillion in a blink of an eye because of no oversight. To me, I shouldn't have to hear about this through the Detroit Free Press. I'm almost embarrassed that I read the Detroit Free Press, but that's where I picked it up on. And I think this was, no one did anything intentional, I don't think, on this thing. I don't think we're trying to be misled. I know there was a component trying to get something done as soon as possible. I get that. And, but when we pride ourselves in being transparent and taking care of the taxpayer dollars, my constituents up here definitely pay attention to this. My phone lit up. I was getting texts. Hey, what's the deal with they're reading the same article, and I couldn't answer them. I had no idea what they were talking about. That's the problem I have. How is it? I'm a county commissioner. I didn't know anything about this. My constituents, they trusted me when I said, I'll keep you informed and we're going to be good stewards of the money. And I said, I don't know where that 12,000, I didn't hear anything about it. So that's my biggest problem. I'm not going to compare the buildings. The Boss Place is a spectacular place, but there are some things at the Deltaflex. I talked to Joe Langlois. He said they could handle that load. He did the math. He could do it with 2 of his rooms and not all 3. He actually sat down and did the square footage estimates. Just because the DeVos Place has 1 million square feet, we shouldn't be paying for 1 million square feet or a percentage of that. I think instead of touring DeVos Place, we should have toured the Deltaflex and let Joe explain his side. He's giving it to us for free, basically $500 a day to cover his utilities and so forth. So anyhow, again, I'm not accusing anybody of doing anything that's, shaky in any way, but I just think we probably missed an opportunity to do a little bit more due diligence. That $12,000 a day, I've rented buildings. I've rented the Novi Expo Center. I've rented the Birch Run Expo Center. I've rented fairgrounds before. I've been doing this for 30 years. We put 20,000 people through at the Deltaflex, and that's after filling the place up with 10 by 10 booths and displays. They do have a big capacity there, especially set up the way it's set up at the Boss Place, So it's that $12,000 that I'm hung up on. The rest of it, great building, all that stuff, but there's no way in my mind we can justify spending $12,000 a day. And I would leave you with this. If we didn't have the CARES Act money, I don't think we would be spending 12,000, because we tend to think that, well, that's government, that's federal money. That's still taxpayer dollars. And I think we took an oath of office to be good stewards and everything. And I don't think we're being good stewards and paying 12 grand. I think this should be happening at a much discounted rate or for free. I still say free would send the signal to our constituents. Yeah, Kent County is different than everybody else, and we do take care of our constituents. So that's all I have to say. I hope we can renegotiate that contract, and I hope maybe we could take a tour of the Deltaplex together and actually take a look at it instead of speculating. Thank you.
Hey, Commissioner Womack?
Yes, thank you, Chair Jones. I had a chance to visit the divorce hall yesterday and the divorce place, and I was very impressed upon the percentage of the building that's being used. I've seen many conventions being held there. A lot of times when we look at prices for the convention center or for the theater, a lot of those prices that are posted publicly are for 4 hours, 3 hours, an hour, but maximum 4, and we consider an entire day in that industry to be 8 hours. So looking at our partner Spectrum Health, when they said that this building would be open almost 24 hours, now you're taking the 7,000 that may be for 4 hours, or basically when I rented the DeVos Theater, coming out of that night, and we're talking about a 2-hour concert, the price is usually about, you can rent it for maybe 7,000 to 10,000, but the outcoming cost, once you put all the employees together, the extra equipment you're going to need, you're coming out about 19,000 a night when we do a concert there for 2 to 4 hours. So when I see the 12,000, I do agree with my fellow commissioners, Antor, and also my fellow Democrat, Steve Wooden, that anytime we're spending $12,000 a day and it's taxable money, even if it's coming out of federal, it's still American tax dollars. As commissioners, we do need to be aware of that. But I look more towards us at the end of the day being voted in, that somehow we left this loophole open that gave the permission for this type of money to be spent without coming through us. So that we still have to look at how we legislate and what we can do to make sure that's prevented in the future. Also, with it being in the news that this was done by our staff in the Kent County Health Department, I'd like to add that they had a number of partners just being led through by Spectrum Health officials or people associated with Spectrum Health, and knowing that our medical professionals, when they walk us through and tell us why they needed this building, I understand we have to have a downtown building. We have homeless shelters there that are in walking condition. Our homeless population is not in control of their environment and who they're around, as we may take it for granted when we're at home and we can do our virtual meetings. So we have to have a place downtown. The Voss Place is a great place for it. I also believe that with the Deltaplex offering free, and Joel Langois is one person that says free that really means it. A lot of times when we look at free around the country or in other states, you hear the word free, but the money is taken through the back end. I don't believe a lot of these places across the country that are saying free are really free. I think we should look at the Deltaplex. So I have a question for Adam London as I try to keep it as short as possible. I'm going to have a question for him. But before I ask that question, I do believe as Kent County Commissioners, we have to have a way of making sure that we are alerted when people are spending $360,000 a month. And even if it's for a good cause, that we are alerted about that. Because with our taxpayers even seeing the appearance misappropriations, even though I don't believe these are misappropriated funds. Even that appearance, they have every right to question us. So we have to find a way that this never happens. They brought it to the right doors when they brought it to us as commissioners. My question to Mr. London is, are we going to have other large centers where we can have vaccination? Because we're talking about the whole Kent County. DeVos does a great job for Kent County, DeVos Place, and it does a specific great job for Grand Rapids, Michigan. But with all the other townships and cities that we have to serve, can you tell us what are our plans to service the rest of Kent County, our townships and suburbs and cities like Walker, Cascade, and these other cities? Is Deltaplex someone we will be sitting down to talk with, because they had a lot of things that are legit, and I just don't want to play DeVos Place versus Deltaplex has been played out in the media. To me, the more the better.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner Womack, for the question. As I mentioned earlier, we are viewing this as a two-pronged strategy, where we have the mass vaccination clinic that is accessible and available for the majority of people who can travel, who coming downtown isn't an obstacle for them. And then having a more strategic, focused approach so that we're driving health equity and we're getting to populations that don't have great access to that facility for any number of reasons. And as part of that more focused strategic approach, we may, in partnership with our partners, consider other locations as we go forward. We're also thinking about our mobile units that you voted on one of those earlier in this agenda. Deploying those mobile units to locations throughout the community. We may look at fairgrounds. We may look at parking lots. We may look at vacant buildings for vaccination events that are more focused toward more specific areas and are more strategic, but wouldn't have anywhere near the sort of mass capacity that the DeVos Place clinic has. So it is a possibility that we would explore arrangements with other locations, such as the Deltaplex. At this time, I can't commit to a solid answer on that, because we really don't know the pace of vaccine. We've been told by both the Trump and now the Biden administration that vaccine is going to be coming in millions upon millions of doses very soon. And we want to be prepared to receive and to deploy that vaccine within the same week. And we'll do whatever we can, working with all of you, to make that happen, whether that's at DeVos Place, in our mobile units, at other locations that fit our needs at that time. We want to be nimble. We want to be on our toes with this and be responsive both to where the needs are at and what our vaccine supply looks like. So yes, we will consider other locations as it fits our community needs and as it is useful for getting us through this as quickly as possible, stopping the new cases, stopping the deaths, stopping the disparity, and stopping the failure of businesses, and getting our schools and sports and everything else back on track as soon as possible. And that's really the bottom line here, is how do we get life back to the normal and back to the way we want it as quickly as possible, and make sure that we never have vaccines sitting in our freezers.
Thank you very much, Mr. London, and thank you for your work on this. As I close out, I just would ask the media to also talk to our service providers who are going to be at the vaccine centers on why they felt that DeVos Place was a great place, because they were able to give us a lot of technical information that we would not be able to totally remember everything they said, but I gave you the best analysis that I could from my memory. But Spectrum Health and other partners, even knowing that the National Guard, their participation in this building, there's so much going on in this building to help make sure that this is given out. Different organizations that are volunteering, our first response teams, and how happy they are to be there, definitely justifies the location, if not the total cost. But I hope as legislators and the politicians we can do some things to make sure that the tax dollars that our voters put us in here to protect that we put something in place where we would have the knowledge and not blame the health department or our staff on things we have agreed about and already given them the power to do, and remind that they did not do this without consulting Spectrum Health and those others organizations that it takes to partner with. And thank you, Adam London, for letting the public know that we are considering other places. And I would just ask other venues to just present your case to us based on what you have to offer. And let's try to get as many vaccines out here to save the public and stick together during this pandemic. Thank you, Chair Jones.
Okay, Commissioner Morgan.
Well, thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to start out by saying I am so glad I live in Kent County. I'm going to say that again. I am so glad that I live in Kent County. When we start talking about Wayne County and garages and all these other places, my eyes glaze over. But I have to say that, you know, in my 20 years experience here, Kent County is noted for its good stewardship of taxpayer money. And I think that with this COVID, it's been very fluid. It's been so fluid that the major fallout is I just don't think we can get together like we used to. But having said that, we do have partners, and the CAA is a partner, Spectrum's a partner, Mercy's a partner. They've all been partners of ours, and we work together with our partners. And I have just 100% confidence that our leadership and our staff can see how the facts on the ground are changing. There are startup costs to everything. There's more cost to a building than just utilities. I don't know. I don't think any of our staff or Adam London operated outside of their scope. So I just think that we, as this thing settles out and we have an opportunity and facts change on the ground, that maybe there's an opening that we can renegotiate this contract. But I have complete confidence in our partners and our leadership on this board and our staff. So, and again, I'm just so glad I live in Kent County. Thanks.
Thank you. Commissioner Antor, you want a second at Miscellaneous?
Yes, thank you, Chair Jones. Hey, Roger, I agree with you. I love Kent County, and I feel very fortunate to live here as well. I may disagree with you on a few things. The only reason we brought up the parking garages and fairgrounds and so forth is because those apparently meet the standards required. Deltaflex has HVAC, and I know it's fairly new when they renovated the whole place, but that's all kind of a moot point. The DeVos place just got $2 million, a little over a month ago. It seems to be no one's talking about that. It's a case where it looks like, rich getting richer. And we talk about how convenient it is. It's not convenient. It may be convenient for the people that live right around the Voss place, but we are more than just the city of Grand Rapids. It's not convenient for people in Cedar Springs or Sand Lake to go down to the Voss place. First of all, if you're dealing with older people getting these vaccinations, I can tell you a lot of them aren't going to go because it's not convenient. It's a pain to park for most people, older people. I don't like going down Grand Rapids trying to find a parking spot. It's just difficult. Okay, I think we can all agree to that. It's not easy, especially for older people. Deltaflex has free parking. They got a huge parking lot. It's so accessible. It's easy to get to. So these arguments that it's convenient at the DeVos place, I would argue it's not as convenient as the Deltaplex. Okay, I just wanted to make that point. And the Deltaplex, they volunteered. They said, hey, we can store PPE. So they've already reached out. They've been storing PPE equipment for about almost a year now. Nobody wants to talk about that either. If that's what we're going to base it on, let's talk about what they're offering. And I just think we're kind of brushing over the offer. I don't think we're ever going to come close to, I heard today, 40,000 people a day. You got to do the math. We can't just throw numbers out. Let's do the math. These are appointments, correct? Let's do the math and figure it out. How many people can you physically get into a building? I know when I put on a show, I put 1,000 people an hour through if I have a line going out the door. So I don't think the numbers add up. Again, I just want to make sure that whatever we do, it passes the smell test. Okay, we can't say things that aren't true. And so we need to, after this is all done, I would suggest we take a kind of a look back at this and see what we could do differently in the future, and to make sure the numbers we're throwing out there are accurate and capacities are accurate. I don't know that. Maybe it's completely accurate, and I'll come back and be the first one to say you guys got it right. I just don't think there was enough due diligence on this. You know, if it's important to get something out there right away because of time constraints, then we should already have alternative places locked down. Okay, if we're going to use the Deltaplex or we're going to use some other buildings, we should already have that done if timing is that critical. So that's all I have to say. I'm stuck on this $12,000 a day. I just think that just is brutal. It really is brutal, and it looks like, to me, it looks like cronyism. And I apologize if I offend anybody, but that's what it looks like. And if it looks like that to me, it looks like that to a lot of other people. So that's my last thought. I won't come back the third time. Thank you.
Okay, Commissioner Bukowski.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Yeah, my intent was not to necessarily get into the details, I guess, though, because I mean, one of my concerns about Deltaplex is it's just because Commissioner Antor continued to focus on that venue is the lack of access for public transportation. I've actually taken the bus to the Deltaplex and walked from Alpine Avenue down the hill in weather like what we have today, and then walked back up that hill in the street because the sidewalks weren't plowed or shoveled, both directions. And so, I mean, that's just one little nit in this whole conversation. And I guess my question is, what are we going to do when this meeting's done, both as staff and as the commission to continue to review this? You know, so again, I agree with you know, pretty much everything that was said, that I do believe there is great partnerships here. If this was a wholly, yeah, I mean, again, cronyism, I don't think it looks that way because, again, it's a publicly owned facility. Yes, it's managed by a for-profit corporation, but, you know, it's like, I don't know. I just, what are we going to do to help how this looks and making sure we are getting the best price for the CARES Act dollars that we are expending?
Wayman, why don't you go ahead and chime in?
Sure. Rich McKeegan with SMG ASM Global has been working with his team to provide information for us to review. I believe he's completed that now. We are expected to meet later today, review that data, review that information, and then hopefully we will resolve this issue. But that's the plan. We have given them the time to come back, and hopefully that information will tell us where their board is at, where ASM Global is at, and we can get this resolved today.
Does that answer your question, Commissioner Bukowski?
I mean, it answers mine. I mean, does it answer a lot of the other questions and concerns that other commissioners had before I spoke?
Wayman, do you want to take a minute to address some of the big picture, how this happened? You know, if you could, do you have that timeline of, you know, that process? Can you explain the process of the day that we needed to get this going and where we are?
Sure. About 2 weeks ago, I don't have the date or the exact time, but we were communicated with by the SMG group, Rich McKeegan, and we were in discussions with him early on about how can we acquire this facility at a rate that would be reasonable. And then, of course, this was after the conversations had occurred with staff who had been working with other locations, Deltaplex being one of them. The health department had reached out to Deltaplex, other locations, about partnering with them singularly. As things were moving forward, as you know, other groups, hospitals, Meyer, others have received vaccine, and it was determined that it would be better for that group to work together collectively to do a larger venue, and it was decided to move to the DeVos place. So that discussion was occurring simultaneously as we were thinking about how would we make that happen with the county. So our team worked with SMG. They talked through the contract. Initially, it was a $33,000 a day idea, just so you know that. And then the number moved to 12,000. So we are trusting that the partners themselves are giving us their best price based on the request that was made a couple of weeks ago. And so as this thing has evolved, my hope is that they can continue to provide us data to confirm what those costs are, which is what we're asking for today. I think, with everything going on, there's been a tremendous amount of planning between Spectrum, Mercy Health, the county health department to plan this out. So all of that was happening as we were attempting to be the best first community that had a large venue for max vaccination. You saw what we shared yesterday. I think from what I can tell, they've done a tremendous job in securing a facility that works for all the partners. I can tell you that I'm not at all happy about the result of your not feeling that we communicated with you about where things were as far as the outcome of those negotiations. Again, I think I tried to explain that earlier to you, that we assumed that those dollars that were allocated from CARES funds were available for the health department's use for vaccinations. And we did not at that time, based on the information that we had, feel that we were operating outside of what the obligation of the health department's role was. So there was never any intent, again, I will say this again, to go around the board, to hide something, to try to create some kind of crony backdoor solution to a problem. It was in good faith, as we always have. And my hope is that with the discussions that have been occurring, we can resolve this in post haste. So that's the discussion that we're going to have with that group following this meeting. My hope is that we will come up with something, as everybody has mentioned, that would be a lower cost that would not further put them in a position of not being able to get things done. Here's the other thing I would like to say, that when we first started this back in March, April, we were supported by several other entities, including Meyer, including Amway, and they gave opportunity for us to benefit from sanitation, from clothing and supplies that would go to the homeless community. They did not charge the county one item for that. And there are other nonprofits that came to the table as well, other businesses that came to the table. It charged the county anything. We hope that I think the comments made, that we hope that because they're a quasi-public entity, that we are in fact, and I heard this comment, that we are the father or mother of them. The city of Grand Rapids and the county are the father, the mother of the CAA. They ought to recognize that we are in fact looking out for their best interests, as we always have. When we've had down markets, down times, we've accepted the reduction in the hotel motel tax, and we've taken the hit here through the general fund. And $7 million of lost revenue, we had to pull out of our general fund. We had to make concessions. We had to lose 115 employees. We froze wages. We stopped capital improvement projects. So the county has always reacted to these big events, whether it be a recession due to the housing issue that occurred, or now the pandemic, figure out what we can do to mitigate further harm to the community, but yet at the same time capitalize on what resources we have on the table to put us back in a position where the community is not harmed. I look at the example of Hurricane Katrina. If looking back at what decisions were made at the federal, state, local level, city of New Orleans, and we were involved in helping to resolve that issue back then. I just say to the SMG ASM Global organization, we are not solving a problem that is unique to SMG ASM. It is a public county problem that we're trying to solve. And like what happened in New Orleans, everyone from FEMA, from the state of Louisiana and the city of New Orleans, they came together and they figured out how to stop the terrible result of that second wave that was occurring. My feeling is that we've done everything to place that in their lap, and hopefully they will say, you know, it does make sense for everybody to contribute here in a way that the public is going to feel good about it, that nobody's going to feel like they're being taken advantage of. And so that's probably more than you needed to know, but I'm willing to share more information. We provided all of you with facts about this, an FAQ. I've answered several commissioner questions. If there are more questions you'd like me to answer, I'm available.
Okay, Commissioner Womack has his hand up for a second time.
Yes, I just wanted to also thank Mr. Commissioner Bukowski for all of his historical work here during Miscellaneous, for all of his work for Americans with disabilities, and enjoyed his comments today as we voted on some things that will help those with disabilities during the pandemic. Also, just wanted to say that no venue can serve all the needs of the citizens of Kent County. But I think with the Voss Place, with that being put in place by our partner Spectrum Health, our health department and others, I believe it really opens up more opportunities for us to use other venues, because a lot of the needs that we will need that they may not have, now that's all being taken care of by a central location. So it really opens up a lot of more opportunities for us to work with other venues, instead of the thought that is about throughout the media that it may close some of these opportunities. I believe it opens opportunities. Even looking at all of the space used for refrigeration of the vaccine, there's a lot of things that I had not thought of because I'm not in the medical profession, but just to be walked through there from Spectrum Health was a great thing. And I look forward to hearing some of their comments in the media. I do agree with Commissioner Wooden that we're going to need some more information, and I don't need that information to try to backpedal and second guess our Kent County Health Department that's doing a brilliant job, and our staff, but just so in the future we can make sure that we're on top of these things. We have a better understanding of why we're spending $360,000 a month with I still can't get my hands around, but without seeing the details and the paperwork, it would be hard for me to be negative, pro or con on that issue. So I look forward to seeing some of that paperwork and some of the things we could do in the future, so we'll have knowledge of it, so we can let our voters know, so our voters don't have to hear about it through the media. So there's some work we have to do in-house, but I can say the argument of location versus location, that what has been done by our staff in Kent County and our partners, our many partners that are in this building. Also knowing when people say that it's cronyism and that the Voss Place was picked because some in-house connections. One thing Spectrum Health said to me yesterday that really stood out, when we're talking about bringing 20,000 people in, we're not talking about what we're used to seeing 500 people crammed together at one time, thousands of people sitting next to each other. We're talking about taking 20,000 people in, 10,000 minimum a day, and keep them with 6 feet space. So that eliminates a lot of other places downtown that we could have had it. So I am very happy that we have a public place like DeVos Place that is allowing us to do this. If we didn't, and for our former leadership in Grand Rapids, philanthropy and investors in the city and the county investing in these venues, if we didn't have these venues, how will we get this thing done? We are very blessed county, as Roger Morgan said, Commissioner Morgan said, he's so proud to live in Kent County. I'd have to echo that. I'm very proud to live in Kent County, and I'm sure we'll be able to work together. Thanks, Chair, for letting me speak the second time. Thank you.
Hey, Commissioner Wooden, you would like a second miscellaneous.
Yes, and just very brief, I thank you, Wayman, for your comments on this. And, I do certainly believe that our county administration acted in the best interests and in good faith. And my comments are merely that I do believe that the CAA needs to provide more proof and it is forthcoming, and hopefully we can get a fairer deal. What I'm wondering if in the future it would make some sense to add to our central purchasing policies some kind of disclosure requirement to the board when an exception is made. This kind of an activity is an exception to the central purchasing policies that we have. It's listed. And I'm just wondering that when an exception like that is made, or if it's made and the amount is above a certain dollar number, it would make sense to at least disclose that to us so that we do know this has been decided on. That way, as mentioned before, we would hear from you all the reason why it was done, rather than having to ask questions after it is discovered by the news.
Sure, we can do that. I think that's a good way to solve the issue. And my hope is that we've all learned from this, Commissioner, as you pointed out, the fact that, these are different times, and, the 114.6 created all kinds of different ways in which we operate and how we managed to put those dollars on the table. And we're all learning from this. This is all brand new. So I appreciate your comments, and yes, we can do that.
All right, we don't see anything else in miscellaneous, so I will go ahead and wrap that up, and wanted to emphasize how important the transparency part is. So Wayman, I understand that is in process. When you get that, please get that to us. I think that's really important. What I'd really like to know too is, after that's in, what the plan for the future is. I understand this contract ends February 28th. So my next question is, what happens between now and the end of February? Is it on the table to look at different options? Is it going to end up with a reasonable amount that we will end up staying put at DeVos? And one of the pieces that's been brought up is, and I want to clarify this, I assume we still have Adam on the line?
I believe so, yes.
Adam, we already have multiple locations for COVID vaccinations. Is that correct?
Correct.
And do we have a listing of where those are? Do you?
Yeah, they're available at vaccinatewestmi.org.
I mean, can you list like 4 off the top of your head? We have DeVos Place.
Yeah, we have 700 Fuller, the health department, where we're doing about 500 vaccinations a day. The Baxter Clinic, St. Mary's is operating out of that site. And Spectrum Health has a location on 60th Street where they're doing a walk-in clinic.
Okay. So thank you for sharing that. And Wayman, we look forward to more information as this continues to develop. And with that, we will adjourn, and our next meeting date is Tuesday, February 16th at 8:30. Thank you.
Thank you.